Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to workshop 3 of our Hazards Out series, where we are looking at all the aspects related to the separate collection of household hazardous waste linked to the obligation in the European Union since the beginning of the year to separately collect household hazardous waste. I'm John-Paul Judson, founder of NOWMORE, which is facilitating this initiative, an initiative that has been initiated by FEAD, the European Waste Management Federation, and joined in partnership then also with ACR Plus, representing municipalities, and Hazardous Waste Europe, representing the hazardous waste treatment sector. And together we're trying to build a community of professionals who are working on household hazardous waste, and B, trying to better understand the challenges and some of the existing solutions that can help us improve the way we manage this waste stream for the circular economy, but also then to also protect our environment. I would also like to mention that we have a website, hazardsout.eu, where you can find many different resources from our previous sessions, and where we will be, gradually building content there that hopefully will be useful for your endeavors, whether that's on policy or whether that's on a more operational level. Today in this session, we'll be looking at extended producer responsibility. It's a concept that is, in a way, very European and has also been a cornerstone of circular economy policy. It's through extended producer responsibility that we have been able in Europe to build a governance framework for waste management that has enabled to push materials back into use as secondary raw materials, but also to safely manage waste, right? And so extended producer responsibility, we've seen it develop in many different product segments. And the question we're asking today is, does it also have a role to play when it comes to household hazardous waste? When you look around Europe, it's not obvious to find examples of extended producer responsibility organizations that are dedicated specifically to this waste stream. But there are some examples, and collectively in France, for instance, we will be hearing later on from Pierre, Charlemagne, Managing Director of EcoDDS. There is such an example of a collective extended producer responsibility scheme dedicated to household hazardous waste. On the other hand, it's not always about collectively managing this responsibility. It can also be carried by companies, producers. And so we'll also be hearing from an example with Cynthia van Westerhuizen, Marcus from AkzoNobel, and Erik Wegh from InterChem on how companies are also trying to take on board this responsibility to improve the way their products are handled after use. So following these two presentations, which I hope will give us great insights on the interaction between extended producer responsibility and waste management, we will then engage in an open conversation. This is another important point for us in these series, is that you also engage, raise your questions, right? We know that not everyone knows everything about household hazardous waste, and we try and make sure that you get good insights. And so you will be able to raise your questions, obviously in the chat and the Q&A, but also in our open discussion, you'll be able to turn on your camera, microphone, and actually, engage. This is a meeting. We want to make the most out of the next hour and a half together. So that's basically our plan. Before I introduce the first speakers, let me just say a quick word as well on obviously participants themselves, to introduce you a little bit to who else is in the meeting with you. So we received 118 registrations for this workshop. A lot are coming from the waste management and recycling sector, but we also have a strong interest from public authorities, both on national and local level. So we'd be very also interested to hear from you in the discussion as to, what kind of policies do you have in mind on local and national level that can help improve the situation on the separate collection and management of household hazardous waste. And then obviously we'll also be very keen to hear from, some of the NGOs, civil society, academia, other EPR schemes. So, feel free to take the floor. And also we have representations from 30 countries that have registered today, with Belgium, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, Lithuania, and the UK in the lead. But again, it's the diversity of your local situations that will also be really interesting to hear more about later. So please feel free to chip in, make your comments and questions in the chat, and I will also do my best to raise them with the speakers. So I think then, without further ado, we can go straight to our first presentation, which is a joint presentation by Erik Wegh and Cynthia van Westerhuizen Marcus. Erik and Cynthia, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Jean-Paul. Let's control this presentation. We're going to do a double presentation with me and Cynthia. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Erik Wegh, Commercial Director of InterChem, working for 15 years now within the company. Mainly responsible for the strategic business development and sustainability within our company. Something about InterChem as a collector and processor of hazardous waste. We aim to add value to the waste we collect, and we have our own production facilities for both paint and solvent. We do distillation of solvents and specialize in recycling the paint with processing and reusing them, which positioned us now as the paint recycling company as we are today. Well, for the introduction, from the same philosophy, we started 10 years ago, starting recycling wall paint residues from both professional painters as consumers. Which has led, well, by example, the collaboration with AkzoNobel and development of the recycled wall paint, the Sequence Recycle Alpha Recycle Mod. Well, I'm happy to speak here and well, tell you about the possibilities of paint recycling, but also the challenges we're still facing in this process. Cynthia.
Yes, thank you, Erik. Hi all, I'm Cynthia van Westerhuizen, working for AkzoNobel, one of the big paints and coatings companies in the world. I'm working for the department Decorative Paints Benelux, so Belgium and Netherlands. And with decorative paints, we mean actually the paints that you and I use on our house. On your front door, in your garden, on your window frame, etc., etc. We are active in multiple countries, but I'm representing Belgium Benelux. And I manage our technical experts and quality, meaning I'm working a lot with the products, the interface between marketing and R&D. Sustainability is also a big part of my role, and that's actually why I am here. I'm active in multiple, let's say the Belgium and Netherlands, the Dutch paint associations, in the working groups about sustainability, and I have been heavily involved in the product that Erik already mentioned, Alpha Recycle Mat, one of the product that we will showcase you today. I'm happy to be here, and let me see if I can take over control to move to the next slide. Wait, there are multiple slides. Yes, here we are. So we are here today because, of course, Erik and I, InterChem, AkzoNobel, we are very proud of a collaboration that we've set up. Starting at the beginning, we sell paint. We sell a lot of paint, not only AkzoNobel. There are, of course, other big paint companies in Europe. And in the Netherlands, we've done investigation and we figured out that around 10% of the sold paint is not used. You can imagine it yourself. I guess you might all have once painted a wall in your living room, for example. You had a leftover, you put it in your shed and you think, well, that might be useful one day. And after 5 years, you walk in that shed again and you think, that bucket, it's still there. And then at a certain time you say, okay, now it's enough. I'm not going to use it anymore. I will bring it to one of the waste collecting points. So that happens a lot. Around 10% of the sold paint ends up as waste. And to give you a number about it, that would mean in the Netherlands around 7,000 tons of paint, which of course is a lot. So we think there is really an opportunity to build a circular framework to do something with that. Today, Erik and I are really talking about our collaboration, but I also want to highlight already in this point that we as an industry in our paint association locally, we've said, okay, this is indeed a challenge. We acknowledge it and we think we need to work together. So in Belgium and Netherlands, working groups have been started, but today I want to zoom in the example, very clear example, successful example that we already have. Besides that successful story, of course, we will also tell you a bit about what we are learning and challenges we see for the future. Erik, the floor is yours.
All right. And I take control again. Our next slide. We're talking about challenges in the paint recycling in the process. Or going from a linear process to a circular process. I'm talking about the environmental impact, some key essentials you see on your left, and zooming in on collection and processing challenges we still facing, ending it with a lack of awareness, which is very important. Starting with setting the scene, focusing on hazardous waste from the households, also known in the Netherlands as small hazardous waste. The paint waste constitutes a significant part. There was a survey a few years ago in 2022 among 18 Dutch municipalities, and shows that of the chemical waste households that hand in at the municipalities, at collection sites, about 53% by weight is paint. Of that paint waste, about 66% is the latex, or what we call the water-based paint. So the environmental impact speaks for itself. As long as there are no other opportunities or solutions for that paint, and they're not available, most of the paint still ends up in incineration, even landfills, or flushed down the drain. So we can conclude it is important to address this issue and find a solution for it. For us, if we talk about circular impact, there are some three key questions, key essentials that we address in our process, and whether a waste stream for us is considered recyclable or not, and make circular impact with it. That's what we do. So what you see on your left, three. The first one, can we reduce the CO2 emissions? Can we produce a quality that meet up with the market standards? And the third, can we create, and that's also a very important one, can we create a sustainable business model which is cost efficient? Well, about the first two, can we reduce CO2 emissions? Yes, because obviously the biggest CO2 impact lies in not having to produce the raw materials again. Can we produce a qualitatively new product or process the material in our own production? Yes, we have an answer to that. It's more technically, Cynthia will come back to this subject on later slides after this. So I'm trying to zoom in the third one, creating a sustainable, cost-efficient business model, and taking you through the process that's for us led us to several proven products with successful recycled products, but also the challenges we have encountered and still facing in this process. I think, starting with the collection, I go to the next slide, this one. The collection and the processing challenges, starting with collection of the paint waste. If you want to build a circular model that works, first we have a broader challenge we have to face, and it is to control the entire circular process. We need to align our structural demand for recycled paint with the waste supply, the waste intake, ensuring a reliable waste stream we can build on. And while referring to the that cost efficient model, going from linear to circular, we see we have to compete with the established linear waste processing system that has been optimized for many years, and but directing paint straight to incineration. So that is a logistic model, well, based on the need for paint to fuel the incineration and generate energy. So, but unfortunately, the pricing and the contracts are built around this system. So, since our recycling process is mainly manual and still cost intensive because it's in a starting phase, we still need to convince the waste contractors, but also the painters, we have a better alternative for this incineration, but well, it's not necessarily cheaper than incineration. So that's the first challenge in collection. Well, the semi-manual process we have challenged us to make next the process as efficient as possible. So the process consists in 3 main stages. The first one, sorting. Well, for us, it's essential to collect as much usable material as possible. Though we set the conditioning for the water-based paint at containing at least 25% to qualify it for internal sorting. Otherwise, well, the usable material isn't cost effective to have manual label on it, which is needed to separate it from the packaging. And currently we're also focusing on the 5 and 10 liter buckets. So in the primary sorting, it is important to have this correct. That's formerly also the external sorting. And it is important to maintain our high yields. Well, based on the level of contamination, we do a visual inspection, opening the containers. The paint leftovers also being sorted in usable, non-usable, and after that we already also sort by color and by quality. If we look at separating, the next step, we're going to separate the contents from the packaging. The usable paint fraction is collected, well, in a paint vessel, and we're going to analyze it. Well, the bonus in this recycling process is because the buckets are scraped clean. You can see on the picture. That's why it's perfectly suited for plastic recycling. So the empty containers out of the process are sent to a partner, another partner of Veolia Polymers, and they process them into granules to make new paint buckets out of it. Next step in our process is the production. Well, a very important step in this one is the filtering the separated fraction. With specially designed filter, we remove all the possible fine contamination from the usual paint. So and after that, the filtered fraction is blended with new virgin material to ensure the desired quality. Well, I think that the main challenge we have in this process is to align the production with our sorting and separating process, and on all these steps to come together to minimize the contamination during this process and degradation of the material. Now, obviously, it is being checked all the time, on which Cynthia also will go into with more detail. Going back to the last one, the lack of awareness. The lack of awareness is also a challenge as well in the front end as in the back end. Due to this lack of awareness, well, there's no clear incentive to dispose the paint residues properly. So what we see is paint residues still end up in other waste streams, such industrial waste or construction waste, So without these awareness, there are some recycling possibilities. Users, consumers in this way, they are less likely to bring their paint residues to the right collection point. And well, I think this is in line with the story Cynthia just told you about. We all leaving buckets with paint in our shed, in our closet, and home, thinking we still going to use it, but in reality that rarely even happens. And then, well, the same buckets with paint are still there, but unfortunately dried out and not usable anymore. On the other hand, so also in the front end, there's also that same lack of awareness of using recycled content and using products with recycled content. So, but that's hindering us from scaling up and to meet up with this efficiency goals, because we need to scale up in that part. Yeah, so as a result, because they don't know the recycled solution and recycled product, demand for recycled product is still limited. So handing it over to you, Cynthia.
Thank you. Yes, so I will go to the, I think the clearest example of a recycling solution we have got. You see here on the screen a bucket, Sikkes Alpha Recycle Mat. Sikkes might be a brand you recognize. It's a big brand all over Europe. And I think this is really the proud example of the collaboration between InterChem and AkzoNobel, where we have been able to develop a product and to sell a product with recycled content. I think the strength of our collaboration is that we really have got two different expertises, different areas of expertise. So AkzoNobel really knows how to develop a paint. We've got all the knowledge, what does the customer want? InterChem has got the expertise about collecting waste, recycling waste, the legislative part about waste. AkzoNobel is also not really familiar with that. So combining those two, I think we've got a, let's say, golden combination. When we talk about selling a product, of course, quality is key. People pay a lot of money for it, so it should be good. So that was, especially for my responsibility, I think the biggest thing to sort out. So we have, really intense collaboration, I would say, with the colleagues of InterChem, having a lot of meetings to discuss how to do this the best. And I think it started with making agreements on the incoming waste. Erik already explained that there's a lot of sorting going on. Not all paints can be reworked in such a paint. So we said, okay, you can use these paints, no problem at all. But please, these paints, if you can sort them out, that would really help us. So that was actually step one, to ensure that we get the quality we want. Erik already told you, at InterChem, they empty the buckets and they make a blend of it, let's say the PCR blend. The main risk of that is that it might be contaminated with microorganisms. Waterborne paint tends to grow bacteria, fungi, so it's important that they are killed. So AkzoNobel, with our expertise, we dictated InterChem, okay, for this recipe, we want you to add these biocides in these amounts to make sure the paint is clean. Then we came to the point where we said, okay, we've got the PCR blend, but from that we need to make a proper paint with the quality expectations that a Sikkens customer has in the Netherlands and in Belgium. And from there, we have been testing a lot. You see on the bucket a logo stating this paint contains 35% recycled content. So what we have been doing, we have been testing multiple combinations. We have been testing different virgin paints. You can imagine, AkzoNobel, we've got a lot of recipes. So we've tested different virgin paint recipes in combination with the recycled blend in different ratios. And we figured out at a certain time, okay, 35% PCR, 65 virgin paint with this recipe of virgin paint gives us the good quality the painter wants. Step one. It also needs to be stable over time, meaning batch after batch, every batch needs to be within the same specification, and it needs to be a narrow specification, because in this case we talk about the professional painter, it's not the consumer. So we have not tested one sample, we've tested multiple samples to ensure that batch after batch we produce the right quality, and from there, as an AkzoNobel, we set specifications that once InterChem is really producing the paint, they need to measure according to given specs, and if all's okay, we say this is good, can go to the market. I think so far everything is going very well, so that is good. All the work was worth it. Of course, we were facing challenges. I think a very honest answer of the biggest challenge was to be open and transparent and sharing knowledge. We as AkzoNobel, we are a multinational that brings a lot of politics in the company. We think this is our knowledge. We know how to make paint, and now all of a sudden we need to tell Erik how to make paint. Is that really what we want? So there, a lot of internal discussion have been going on. Like, okay, this we can share. We build trust. We want this. We need to share this information. I think that is something we don't need to underestimate. Another big challenge was safety information. Paint is a chemical product, so we need to provide safety information. If we make fresh paint, it's rather easy because we know which raw materials we put in the paint. We've got the safety information about the raw materials, so we can make the safety information of our finished product. But in this case, actually every batch of recycled content is different, you can imagine. So what we've done there at the beginning, we have tested multiple PCR blends. We have them fully analyzed. And from there, we built up kind of a recipe where we said, okay, if these are the outer specs of that recycled blend, this is the safety information. We are sure that this is safe. No raw materials are in it that we don't want anymore. And based on this, we've got an accurate data set, what we can use to build our safety data sheets. Last challenge I want to highlight is that legislation is becoming more restrictive. It already was a challenge at that time, but it's becoming more and more restrictive. I already told you we add biocides to the paint to ensure it won't grow bacteria and fungi. But the legislation about biocides is becoming more restrictive every year. So that is also really a challenge for the future. If we really think the circular way forward is the way to go, it's important that the European politicians are also aware of the risk they are creating by making this legislation more restrictive. Something to think about, I think, with all of us. I also wanted to show you the number of carbon footprint reduction. Erik already mentioned, of course, we are reducing the carbon footprint. Here you see a clear number. We have done LCA calculations, life cycle analysis calculations, done at a third party. And it has been calculated that the carbon footprint of this Alpha Recycle mat is 32% lower than the average AkzoNobel wall paint we sell in the Netherlands. And then we talk about carbon footprint per square meter painted surface. So that is a very nice number, I can tell you. Of course, we are doing different things to reduce the carbon footprint, but nothing reduced it as much as this circular solution. Because that, of course, is what it is. By using this, we prevent paint. In the base is good paint, although the consumer might think it's waste. It's good paint we can reuse by treating it at the right way. We can prevent producing new raw materials, gaining materials from the earth. So really circular. You might notice that I'm really proud of this. I'm very glad that together with InterChem we've been able to make this, and proud to showcase that this partnership is bringing something that makes a first step for doing something with all those leftovers. I think, Erik, the next slide is yours again.
Yes, it is. well, some insights and future directions. Talking about this circular initiative and trying to grow it and make it even bigger. There's also a role of local governments, and I think that role is crucial. Not only at facilitating, but also educating, collaborating, and building an infrastructure. So looking at the facilitating of the collection points, research has shown that accessibility is key to ensuring paint residues are disposed properly. So for the painters, consumers, looking at their interest, first of all, the consumers are willing to make a sustainable choice, but they do search for convenient location of collection sites. It must be low key. That also means for the painters, the professional painters, and they also want it to be free of charge, a free collection system. So what we're trying to do now is an improvement on existing recycling centers, because that's already been achieved in the Netherlands. It's already being facilitated. We're trying, in collaboration with them, to increase that and create more point collection points within a system, Paint Collect, where both consumers and painters can return their paint residues even more easily. If we talk about educating citizens, like I said, they are willing to make a sustainable choice. But, well, again, we need to reduce the lack of awareness. And I referred that earlier. It is important to educate them and letting them know about paint recycling. So if the users are involved in the problem and informed about the existence and possibilities of this paint recycling, they will be more likely to bring their paint waste correctly and to the right disposal points, and even start for painters using recycled products. So on that part, collaborating with the stakeholders, is with many circular initiatives. Collaborating with along this whole value chain is key. I believe that, and you need to create a sort of shared interest with policy and legislation from local authorities can help, possibly through creating an efficient EPR framework. So the last one, going on to that, and building infrastructure and engagement, we need to improve that infrastructure. Also, I mentioned earlier, local authorities can also provide support in the areas of regulation and enforcement by building this infrastructure and more focused on circularity instead of linear processes. So in that perspective, it all comes down to awareness and, just what we did, taking action from awareness of the problem, the responsibility we all have, to the knowledge of the solution, the producer, the user, also the collector, and the processor of the waste, which also intends the local authorities. Behavior and motivation, I think, run as a common thread throughout this process. Going back to you, Cynthia.
Yes, thank you. Last slide. I think we're running a bit out of time.
Yeah.
Perhaps I will stop after the success factors. I think all the challenges have been mentioned already before. I think the success factor of this story was really the entrepreneurship, having the mentality to say, okay, we're going to do it. Of course, you can analyze it until forever. You can talk about it forever, but at a certain time you need to say, okay, we're going to give it a try. I think that is what's really showcasing why we now have got a product on the market. Another thing I already said is really trust each other. be honest and share knowledge, but also give it some time to grow. Of course, it would be wonderful if you do something innovative that it will always be a big success from the beginning on, but sometimes, yeah, things need time. So I think we also need to be realistic with all each other, and sometimes you need to give it some time to grow. I would like to end with this.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cynthia and Erik, for this joint presentation, which shows already an element of collaboration in itself, and the project as well. Maybe just a quick couple of questions, right? Just as a very brief follow-up, because we've already established that, you know, paint is a major part of household hazardous waste, and that's why we were very happy to get an example from the paint sector, right, on how you're dealing with this. But initially, honestly, the idea was more, well, you know, we have this separate collection obligation for household hazardous waste, and hopefully that means that this hazardous waste is not entering other kinds of streams where it could pose a problem for further treatment and recycling, right? So initially the idea was, well, first and foremost, the separate collection is to make sure it's managed safely, because it's a hazardous waste, right? In your example, you're saying, well, no, I mean, we want to take it a step further. I mean, we want to through our product development, we're showing that we want to actually recycle this liquid material, if you like. With the obligation of separate collection in the legislation as of the beginning of this year in the European Union, would you say then your ambition in a way with this separate collection obligation is to push this material as far up as you can up the waste hierarchy, or are you already happy if this material is simply just managed safely and doesn't kind of interfere with other recycling streams with which actually you have very little to do? I'd be curious to hear a bit like your ambition behind the implementation of separate collection actually in relation to the project that you've just described.
Yes, well, I think our ambition goes further than just, well, the main important thing is to have it separated safely and going into the right waste streams. But our ambition is, like I started this presentation, to add value to the waste, to recycle it. So I think we're still in a beginning phase. Like I mentioned, we need to control the process. We need to scale up. We need to go from manual to automatically sorting, separating. So there's a lot of work to do, starting in the Netherlands to make this process more efficient, and even then making steps to abroad, because what you see, we also produce products for outside of the Netherlands, and obviously the users of that paint it gives us the question, well, can we deliver it to you, and can you recycle it? So it's still growing, but we're not there yet. We don't have possibilities yet in other countries to do the same what we do here in the Netherlands.
Yeah. And for Cynthia, maybe a bit more specifically, I mean, you talk then about a specific recipe, right, in this project, with a careful balance between, you know, what's come from recycling and what's coming from virgin materials, which in a way is a kind of symbol, right, of the circular economy in this paint recipe. It's a careful balance. But usually when we talk about uptake of secondary raw materials back into the economy, there are two major factors that tend to come up. One is cost, and the other one is quality, right? And everyone's a bit sort of, you know, careful with that. And the recycling sector also needs to defend the fact that, yes, it can provide high quality materials, right? As high quality as virgin. But in your case, obviously, you're dealing with something that initially was still considered a hazardous waste. So I'm just wondering, like, in terms of this cost and quality balance, do you think, again, in terms of ambition, there's something that can really be improved and rolled out, or do you think it's more like specific projects in the end and, you know, relatively peripheral, if you see what I mean? Like, I'd be keen also to get your view on that.
Of course, the real honest story is I'm working for a big company. The aim is to make money. of course, cost is always a very important topic when we talk about recipes. But we also have got very high ambitions on the level of sustainability. So I think there is kind of a interesting discussion going on every time. Like, okay, if you really want to reduce the carbon footprint, and you can do it at a raw material, but at the end of life is also very important. And this is where you can reduce the end of life part and the raw material part. So there is a tension between the two. And I think every single case is discussed individually, let's say. But for sure, I'm pushing, at least in the Netherlands, Belgium, to our management team, like, okay, I think this is the best way forward. I think we should try to make this bigger. I think it is very unique at this time. So from a commercial point, that's interesting, of course. And I think it's the right way to move forward regarding sustainability.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I mean, it gives a sense. I will. I mean, if we can we bring? We can have one question potentially. If we can bring Thomas in. Thomas, if you like, you can turn on your camera, or at least turn on your microphone if you don't want to turn on your camera. Better if you can turn everything on, and please, and also unmute, please, Thomas.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the project is very good, but not quite unique. We have it also in Luxembourg since 3 years. It's I don't know. It's the biggest national paint producer in Luxembourg, but of course it's a small one. I don't know if it's known. It's Robin, Peinture Robin. And we have a project together with, well, I'm from the Superdragskirche, the national system for collection of hazardous waste. We have a project together with Peinture Robin, and it's called Robin Loop, and it's a product like this. The problem is now there is no demand. In the moment, it's, how to say, it's on ice. 22 it started, and it was quite there was quite a demand, but the last 2 years, 23, 24, it's more or less no demand. So the project is still existing, but yeah, in the moment Peinture Robin doesn't produce the Robin Loop.
Okay, thank you. I mean, we're always.
Although, let me add that, although they got a prize from the Luxembourg, what was it? Yeah, the Luxembourg Union of Enterprise.
Okay, thanks. I mean, we're always looking for, examples. So thanks for sharing. And at the very least, I think these kinds of projects show a little bit of symbolic leadership, let's say, because mandatory separate collection is one thing, but if there can actually be some kind of market pull as well, it might facilitate its scale up and rollout, let's say. So thanks for sharing. A quick one, Erik, and then we'll move on. Yep.
Yeah, because we know that part is difficult to create a sustainable demand. That's why collaboration within the total supply chain is key. You also need producers of paint and resellers of paint to combine their powers to enlarge the process. I think that's going to work. So just like Cynthia always said, we have to give it time to grow.
Yep. Okay, brilliant. Cynthia, Erik, you'll stay with us, and you can also then be part of the general discussion. I propose then that we move on to our next presentation, which will take us to France. And here we'll be hearing from an organization that embodies extended producer responsibility for household hazardous waste in a pretty big market in Europe. So, Pierre, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have to control the presentation now?
You can click take control, and
yes.
Then you can click through. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I'm very pleased to see Erik and Cynthia, because we know each other. Obviously, we worked together a few years ago, and now we are testing the InterChem solution. The question you asked the previous guy was excellent, because I went to the States, I went to Canada, same thing in Australia. We only are 4 countries in the world who has an ERP model on the chemical industry. So France is one, well, the only one in Europe, but there is one in Canada, one in Australia, and the US. And one of the best question was, is there a demand? Is there a market, in fact? Because as you see, the process to recycle painting is quite difficult. You said there is a problem of cost and quality. And for now, I think there is no real market in our developed countries. So it will probably change. It will be a long way. So I'm pleased to contribute to this. But we should all be aware of the fact that if you ask a question, are you ready to buy a recycled paint? They will say yes. And once they are in the store, they will take the brand new paint and not the recycled one. Perhaps it's also a question of how we market it. Okay, as for now, we try to launch brands that are brand with recycled product, and we didn't really try to say, what if we put 1% or 2% in all the brands with this material? It's probably one way that we should explore in the future. Okay. Well, you asked me to speak about hazardous waste and the ERP model, so I will probably not only talk about painting. So I have to present first EcoDDS. Do you see the presentation? Hello? Yes, okay. So we were created in 2012 when the French government decided to create this EPR scheme. In France, you probably know that we have many EPR schemes. We have something like 20 EPR models. 20 is probably the higher number in the OECD. So we are sort of a champion of this solution. The question is, why did we set this ERP model for chemical products? Well, there was an announced objective that was to pool efforts at a national level and to entrust the private sector with the task of doing better than what was made before. Okay, there was probably a hidden objective, an elephant in the room, which was to take the cost borne by local authorities and put it on the producers' level. So the question of who pays for the hazardous waste, which are the most the higher price in the waste sector, is also a key. So we had something like 40 pages of government specifications detailing 160 new obligations for the producers, and they had to create this new ERP model. In France, we have manufacturers and distributors. They all pay. Manufacturers are paying for their trademarks and distributors are paying for their own trademarks. Okay. So we set a company, EcoDDS, with on the left you have the industrial, let's say industrial producers, and on the right you have the distributors. Okay. These people were the most concerned about it and wanted really to create this structure. But at the end, we have 800 companies in France that contribute to EcoDDS. We have mainly 7 product categories, and we include the categories that you can say: painting, adhesive, sealing, materials for treatment and coating, solvents, diluents, and also other products. Okay, so it's a quite large ERP model. It's not only focused on painting or coating. To manage that, we decided to set a small team. We are a national company. We take the contributions for 800, and we work with nearly all the local authorities. But we try to have a lean organization. So the EcoDDS team is made of less than 20 persons, 20 collaborators. And we were lean at the beginning. I think that we are still lean today. We think that the cost generation of this ERP model should not be the team or the management cost of this type of company, but should be concentrated on the cost to treat the waste. One of the key assets we have is that we built an information system. It is obvious that there is no information system on the shelf when you begin an ERP. So, of course, for financial part, you have all you want. But for let's say, the main part of it, we try to build a model where we have a big data repository. We have a container management system. We have collection management system. We have all the tracking management system because we are in hazardous waste, shipping management, and we do the pre-invoicing for our operators. So as we have many data, we do the pre-invoicing for them, and we pay every month what they collected. Okay. And we also have the same for producers, so they can have a single declaration system for the tons they sell each year. So in France, we have something like 10 streams, 9 or 10 streams, depends. You have here all the categories that we collect, but the main part of it is made of 4 products, and it is the pasty, what we call the pasty, or more or less liquid hazardous waste. Mainly painting, 65% of the tons are painting. You can add sealant, you can have coating, so you will get 85% of total tonnage, and all the others are hazardous waste of more small product. So the question we had in 2000, so we begin in 2012. The question we have a few years after is we collect everything as hazardous waste, but in this hazardous waste flow, there are some products that are not hazardous, and especially for the paint, the producers made lots of efforts to have water-based painting. So the problem was that we paid at high cost in a mixed collection for hazardous, and the question was: are we able to separate this non-hazardous waste, and are we able to do something else with it? So it was the same, I think, the same paradigm that Akzo and InterChem tried to do in the Netherlands. One of the questions is how many paint manufacturers are on the market. If you see the European market, you have some countries where the market is very concentrated. For instance, in the Netherlands, I think there are 5 big doers in painting. UK, four producers. In France, we have many producers. I think it's the same thing in Italy, for instance. So it's not easy for us to have discussions like you have when you have less producers about what can we do about the waste. If you see the figures there, when we were in 2020, we had semi-solid 40,000 tons. And we said it was an assumption at this date with our hypothesis. If we are able to sort this and to separate this, you will have a part of hazardous, the red one, and you will have 27 tons of water-based semi-solid waste. The other question was, are we able to decondition? And we asked a lot with InterChem about that. They said that they have a semi-manual process. When you have 27,000 tons, it can't be only manual. You have to find a way to decondition all these buckets, because the paint is the main part of the waste we have is liquid, and it is not the packaging. Then you have the yellow part, which is pasty liquid, which is not really liquid. It's something that is old, that is something that is not easy to manage and to decondition. We have a metal part, because the buckets could be in metal or in plastic. So we decided first to concentrate on this packaging and not on the liquid. Okay. This is a slide to show you the huge amount, the huge number of collection points we have, and it's not easy to sort and to ask people to sort when you have 3,000, more than 3,000 municipal waste collection centers. We also developed a lot in the last years, the collection in stores, because we saw in the US that it was possible. So we imported the idea in France, and we have now a significant number of stores that collect directly, mainly for painting, coating, silent, but also phytosanitary fertilizers. So this is something that is quite developed now. We begin with less than 1,000 tons, and we are now at more than 6,000 tons of our collection in these stores. Then we collect everywhere, and we group them on 40 hazardous waste sorting grouping platforms. Okay, and some of them, 30 of them, are asked to separate the hazardous from the non-hazardous, which was a big training and building process to help them to do this. Okay, and we are working with 4 major groups. Veolia, of course, with Sarpi, Chimirec, which is a French company, but I think that they are now in Poland and Canada. Séché, which is a big one, and Praxi, which is made of many small companies. The treatment, as for now, is in the hand of little companies, big companies, I mean, but the number of companies is quite small. So you can incinerate in France your hazardous waste in these centers. And to give you an idea, the price of the hazardous waste is 3 times the cost of normal and banal waste. So there is a question of business model here, and this is one of the reasons why we decided to separate and to try to do something else than just incinerate our waste at high cost. So to do this project, we decided to have a normal project with a market analysis and sizing of the market. We worked a lot on the sorting and deconditioning process. We launched this Recupo, which is our facility in the stores to take the waste not only from municipalities, and we worked on the energy recovery and material recovery. Of course, for that you need also a strong business case, and you have many legal aspects We have in France regulation, which is quite complicated. You have to also see what is possible at the European level. So it was a big work to try to see what was feasible technically, but also legally to do this project. At the end, we located an emplacement in near Lyon, in Chambéry, and we put our machine to decondition the water-based paint that has been sorted on the centers I showed before, and we try to separate and to manage to have liquid on one part and metal and plastic on the other part. Then we also separate metal and plastic. So the painting, as you see, arrive there in this center. They go through this machine of deconditioning, and then we have plastic fractions, and they are not on the photo. We also have metal fraction. The metal fraction is quite easy to manage because you will always find people who will take your dirty metal and sell it. Okay. The hard part was the plastic fraction because we had the problem of drying it, but also process the way we will recycle this plastic. And this is the liquid part that we today incinerate at a normal cost, and which is not going at hazardous waste incinerators. With the plastic, which was the main difficult part, we invented a process with a French company. So now we can recycle our plastic, and we also did the manufacture of our collection contents. So you have here all the process, and we deliver these contents to our collection operators. So they collect with these contents coming from the recycled plastic from the buckets, and we did something like 20,000 contents like this for now. So the question is, what can you do with the liquid part? Well, we think that it's very difficult to go to paint. I don't know if AkzoNobel gave figures before. As I said, the market is very difficult. I'm not sure that we are able to sort in France to have 25% of let's say clean liquid to recycle. What I'm sure is that we have some historical waste that are very dirty, they're not very clean. The test we did with InterChem showed that the sorting was very precise, so the part of the pasty liquid that can be recycled was quite small. So we explored other possibilities. One of them is to put some of our painting in concrete. So this works. We now have a challenge to see how we can package this product to bring it somewhere. It's not easy. And the other thing which we are trying now is to transform our liquid into recuperation of titanium dioxide. There is in the painting, there is a material that has a value, which is titanium dioxide. So we are now trying two processes to see if we can extract the titanium dioxide from this liquid. So as you understood, we didn't, at that time in France, we did not go to paint. We tried to do something else with this water-based paint waste. This is the manual process we have in France when it arrived to our operators platform. So you see that it's very manual, and there is also a subject of security of the way people are working on this. So we decided also to try to see if we were able to do a sorting automated platform, and we did it. It was quite long. We took more than 2 years to do this, and you have now the result here. So we have constructed a platform where you have artificial intelligence with a deep learning module that learns to how to sort all these paints coming in. And we are now able to, when you put a bucket somewhere, it will go on the left or on the right, because you have cameras who see what are on the buckets, and automatically put it on the left or on the right. Let's say that the indications that are on the buckets help the system to sort automatically the painting. Here you have the software for that. So as you see here, you have a PPG or AkzoNobel, I don't know, PPG I think, bucket, and the system says with a good probability if it's still dangerous, still hazardous, or if it is something that can be recycled at non-hazardous facilities. Okay, so this is the system. Now this was the prototype that, as you understand, now we exploit the system. And to finish, here is an example of a store in France for professional, where we collect directly the painting waste. So this is all the system we had, because we had so many waste coming that we had to find solutions to automate things and to not treat it as manual as we did before. Thank you for attention, and sorry for my English.
It was perfect. It was perfect. Thank you so much, Pierre, for sharing a pretty major governance structure around household hazardous waste, and as I said, like one of the biggest markets in Europe. So it's an important framework. Maybe just a quick question for you, Pierre, because you talked at the beginning about the elephant in the room, right? Cost, and that somehow the legislation in France setting up the extended producer responsibility governance system was to move a bit the cost away from municipalities, more to producers to set up the system. But what kind of drivers do you have actually within the extended producer responsibility system that you're managing in terms of objectives, let's say? Like, where are you going? Where would you like to go? Because obviously there's the basics, which is safely and responsibly managing hazardous waste. This I understand, but you have developed a lot more than that. And I'm just wondering, does the legislation, or you independently as an organization, have you set more specific objectives that are driving your action?
No, it was really private initiative. I don't like very much to be driven by regulation, although I think that sometimes it is necessary, because otherwise people won't move. But what we try to do in EcoDDS with our stakeholders and with our shareholders was to prove to national authorities that we were able to have entrepreneurship initiative that are not an obligation. Okay, so we really try to push where we want to go, and not to be told what we have to do. Okay. So it's probably one of our philosophy.
Okay, and maybe I can bring in then Cynthia and Erik back in, and we can just basically take up a more open conversation, which also means that anyone in the audience, if you raise your hand, you can come on in on the screen, open your mic and camera and everything, right? So this is the open part. But we do have a question in the chat, which maybe Pierre can take, but also I'd like to get a comment from possibly Erik, maybe Cynthia, on what happens to the paints that are solidified. So the ones that are no longer liquids, what can you do with those paints?
They go to a non-hazardous incinerator. Okay. When they are solid, for now, when they are liquid or when they are solid, they go to an incinerator, like what I call a normal incinerator, not hazardous waste, because hazardous waste again is more than 3 times the price. So once we have made the effort to sort at the beginning and separate the hazardous part and the non-hazardous, we say that the non-hazardous can be in a normal incinerator. The producers want to pay the hazardous part only for the hazardous part, not for the mix of everything. Okay, this was one of the difficulty we had in the discussion we have with the hazardous waste operators, because obviously we were taking one part of their business away, so it was a problem for them. But now we succeeded to show them that the capacity that we liberate in their incinerators hazardous is free for other clients. So it's no more a problem. We had 2 or 3 years of, let's say, fight or negotiation, but now it's not a problem anymore.
Okay, thanks. And yeah, please, Erik.
Yes, well, I think that's the good thing of the system EcoDDS has in France instead of what we have here, because the problem we maintain is, we bring the non-usable paint staying in the bucket and has to go to incineration. But we have some difficulties in order of cost sending it to incineration, because the contractors of the incineration plants, he said, well, if you separate the buckets from the paint, you're going to pay more because we need the buckets also for the incineration. So and that's, well, the problem we have. So for us, it's not efficient now to separate the non-usable paint from the bucket. Although we have a solution for the buckets already, like they do in France with EcoDDS.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to come back also to the question of cost, because our starting point here is the separate collection obligation, okay, on household hazardous waste. On the other hand, it seems that the notion of extended producer responsibility is not widely spread in this sector. So there are very few examples around the world, as Pierre said, and then there will probably be individual examples where companies have taken on some form of producer responsibility. But there still seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between the obligation for municipalities and the cost factor that doesn't seem to be totally framed into the legislation. So my question is, do you think there is a need to develop more policy around managing the costs in order to then implement this separate collection and improve it? I mean, is there a kind of a disconnect here? Or do you think, well, no, ultimately this is a responsibility of municipalities, and therefore through taxation and what have you, it's ultimately a responsibility for citizens, right, to manage this waste? I'd like to hear you a little bit on this, because there's a bit of it seems to me there's a bit of a disconnect in what we're trying to find out in the cost framework around this, and nevertheless this obligation, right, to separately collect, which has a cost and doesn't always get rewarded because, well, there's also a costly treatment behind, right? So maybe Cynthia, just a view on this disconnect, or whether you think there is a disconnect and how that can be improved.
Yeah, thank you, Jean-Paul. I am thinking, because we have got multiple discussions going on related to costs, and I think the one that is the most urgent, let's say, at the moment is about the PACs, not per se the leftovers. And I think with the PACs we are already discussing with the industry. And now we do pay taxes for the packs we put on the market, which might potentially end up as waste. Well, it's all products will always be waste, I guess. Discussions have been started to see, can we do something with centrally collecting it and recycling it? But then again, big part of that discussion is about what will the cost be? Will it really be lower than the cost we are paying now? And indeed, who is going to pay that in the end? Will it be us, manufacturer? Will it indeed be the customer who is buying the paint? Will it be like how do you call it? Kind of a deposit system. In the Netherlands, we do have got it with the plastic bottles of soda. And you pay, if you bring back the can, you get your money back, stuff like that. So no clear statement at the moment, but discussions have been started. Yeah.
Yeah, understood. And maybe a question, I think it's for Pierre, but Michael, if you want to say more around your question, feel free to raise your hand and we can bring you on as well. In terms of the costs, Pierre, and the implementation of your various policies, actions in France, do you think that has had an impact overall on the costs, that you've been able to be more efficient with the costs, or not necessarily?
Well, after this project, we succeeded in having an economy, okay? Because obviously, even if we have additional costs with a process for water-based paint, it was less than what it was before when they were considered as a mix with as hazardous waste. So we decided to distribute a bonus to each of our producers. It was something like it was €5 per ton. Okay, the average eco contribution in France for producers for painting is 140. So we gave them back €5 because we have the economy, and our role is not to take this economy. It is their economy. Okay, so it was also to encourage producers to do more water-based products. At the when I began more than 10 years ago, I think it was something like 80% of the products which were water-based, and now this percentage is higher.
Okay, thank you. I can bring in Michael as well, if we can bring him on screen. And Michael, you can open your camera and unmute.
Yeah, thanks. Well, Pierre, it's really interesting to hear about the scheme in France, and certainly there is could be expanded to other nations as well, for sure. I was wondering, as a public utility company collecting hazardous waste, did you also pay the municipalities for collecting and managing the waste in their facilities?
Yes. We consider that they do an important jump for us, which is having collection plants open to public. In France, I don't know in other European countries, but in France, when you are a household, you cannot put directly your bucket in the collection point. You put it on a table, and then this is one of the guy from the collection point who sort it in the right. So we consider that this work has to be rewarded. So we pay. We have 4 categories of collection points: A, B, C, D. I think for the highest we pay something like 300 more than 3,000 euros, and for the small ones we pay a bit less than 1,000 euros per year.
Okay, thank you. Question. I mean, it says question for Pierre. I think it could also
the main part. Sorry, the main part of the money we pay is not paying this collection point. Is they don't have anymore the cost of the hazardous waste because we take them for free. Okay.
Yeah. A question maybe for Erik first, just to give Pierre a little breather on the flow of recovered plastic materials, because I think you also talked about that. Can you say what can be done? How are these plastic materials being used that are recovered from the collection?
Well, for us, it's still not that large amount of plastic because we only sort the usable paint. That's what I explained earlier. Well, we sort them, the empty packaging, and bring them to our partner, Veolia Polymers, and they're going to clean them and make it granules out of it. And from that flow, I think partly is used as new paint buckets, so that's sort of a 100% circular loop. But I think they, as well as with the paint, they're facing with a structural demand. So they can use it, but they use it for other plastic products. So not everything is used as a plastic paint bucket.
Okay, and Pierre, maybe also just to clarify how the plastic materials are being used.
Well, the plastic materials we have, the first problem we have is to dry them. Okay, so as for now, we tried several processes. The best one is to put them into cages and let the air dry them. Obviously, they dry fast in the summer, and it is longer in winter. Okay, one of the things we are trying to do in the beginning of 2006 is that at Escoffier, where we are, they are building a big center, and we want to use the heat of the compressors they use to dry faster our plastics. We don't have enough plastic to sell them, because one of the questions was, can we sell it to AkzoNobel, to PPG, to... I think the amount is so small that this is not the way we took. We decided to produce our own containers, which are certified EPR. You can use it for hazardous waste, etc. And the business case is that once we supply the contents to our operators, they don't locate. The location is you understand what I say? There is a location on one side, and each time we sell them a new, we give them a new content, they will lower the invoice. Okay, this is the business case for this part.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Vanya, you have a question, please come on in.
First, many thanks to the wonderful speakers and their expert presentations. My name is Vanya Necheva, and I have the honor to facilitate the Hazards Out initiative and partnership. My question is to the waste management sector. It's also maybe more related to extended producer responsibility role in general, as the usual case is that EPR schemes are also tasked with supporting the research and innovation part, and it's great that you already showed the different solutions for the collected materials, but also with awareness raising and training initiatives. And especially as you and also Erik mentioned that the sorting is all usually done manually, and the sorting is not done at the citizen level. Is there any initiative targeting the operators, or is it just a protocol for health and safety? How the operators dealing with this waste at the collection points when they take the materials? Is there any specific training on that?
Who would like to take that one? Erik?
Yes, of course. The municipalities where we work with, we try to train them and make them part of the chain and be part of the solution. So that works because, like I mentioned in my presentation, it's important for us to have a sort of yield and only get the usual paint in our system, because we simply don't have solutions cost efficient for non-usable paint. So we just train them, and trying to tell them how to use the paint what comes in by sorting the 25% minimum contains, and just sorting apart wall paint. So when a consumer comes or a citizen, we have separated containers to collect the wall paint, just well, based on their engagement or enthusiasm and their effort, willing to see if it's wall paint, well, if it contains still paint in it, and then put it apart, and then from there we can collect it and bring it to our site.
Okay, brilliant.
In France, the training we do is more for municipalities agents. And I should say that when I began, they were not very aware of the safety problems. So we did a lot of training. Our training was not only about the sorting, but also about the safety and security good practices. We also supply them to all the municipalities in France, gloves, glasses, yellow t-shirts, you know, so there is really a focus on that for agents, in municipality agents. For the operators, I should say that how this began. A big boss of Veolia once told me the sorting you ask is more slavery than good work. So you should do something about that. So I propose to the operators to invest in exoskeletons to help them to have this manual activity with exoskeletons. In fact, people didn't really use them. So that's why I decided to change my mind and to invest in automated with intelligent artificial intelligence lines. Better than going to exoskeletons and still have a manual process.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I know Cynthia has to leave pretty shortly. Maybe just a final word, Cynthia, because, you know, as I mentioned, we're building this community of professionals working with household hazardous waste. You've touched upon already some of the challenges, and but you're obviously engaged in this conversation. Simple question is, what kind of thing, like collective efforts, that could we facilitate as a community in Europe dealing with this? What kind of main element would be useful for you to continue your work? Like what would you focus on? Is it more on, you know, collection infrastructure, consumer awareness raising, quality issues? Where would you need the most support?
I think from our perspective as paint manufacturer and selling the products, it is also the demand part, having the customers willing to pay money for old paint. I think there's a big communication thing that we still need to work on, and creating that awareness with everybody that even old paint can be very good paint. I think that will be key in the transition.
Acceptance in the consumer market, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Erik,
And
maybe
I'm stepping out, Jean-Paul.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Thanks a lot for having been with us. Maybe also then, Erik, what would be most useful for you in the development of your work? How could we contribute the most?
Well, I think we have to keep going. We have here our own ambition to be self-sufficient with our production. So always looking at our waste streams, if we can use it in our production. Well, it's a bit of idealistic because we always have to maintain quality goals, but also what like Cynthia said, the demand for the recycled products is still a difficult issue. So I think that's what the one thing that's keeping me busy is thinking about why not just use the recycled part without mentioning or claiming anything, because we have proved it can be recycled. We can guarantee the quality. So well, why not just use it and on that way achieve our sustainability goals? instead of just focusing in the first part on the cost efficient part.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks a lot, Erik. And maybe Pierre, like a very, very final thought on what could be useful for you to continue, rolling out the activities that you have.
Okay, two things. I think that to solve this market problem, which could take a long time, instead of creating specific brands with recycled paint on it, we should think about putting 1% of these tons in each brand new paint instead of creating special trademarks. Because the question is not the acceptance of the consumer. The question is it a raw material that you can use and with the good quality? So that's for the market. And secondly, if you want to create a big market, internal market, we have a huge market of consumers in Europe. So instead of having governments trying to impose their regulation countries by countries, we should accept that this has to be at the European level instead of creating barriers in Italy, in France, in Germany, etc.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Pierre, Erik, and also obviously to Cynthia for having shared your views and insights. We've come to the end of this session, but not the end of our series of workshops. We'll be continuing with new topics in the next year. And also we will be following up before the end of the year with some documentation that will hopefully reflect on all the findings and learnings that we have received over the course of these sessions. And obviously stay in touch. We're trying to coordinate a community. So even if you have questions following up these sessions, get in touch with us, with Vanya. Go to the website. hazardsout.eu, and we'll be able to interconnect you, find the right people who might be able to help answer questions. Thank you so much for having joined this session today. I hope you found it interesting to explore a little bit more around extended producer responsibility for household hazardous waste. And I wish you an excellent rest of the week and looking forward to seeing you at the next session. Bye-bye.